Well, hey there, you're on the internet, I'm unemployed, and welcome to the Triple N Network, where all you newbie nib nerds can find all the news you'll need. Let's look at an ink now, shall we? Today's ink is Diamine Wild Strawberry. It's a pretty reddish color. I want to call it red more than pink. It really is, at least until you get to a water test. Now, this is the 30 milliliter bottle. It's plastic. I prefer these because I usually use an ink syringe most often anyways, but for those of you out there, you're probably more accustomed to seeing them in these glass 80 milliliter bottles, but I like these guys. You can have more colors and more variety, and often they're cheaper because you're not paying for the glass. But here's a chromatography test, which I learned from Michael Madsen of YouTube. You should check out his stuff. As you can see, not a lot of water resistance, but it is a Diamine ink, and they generally aren't terribly water resisty. There is some, but that's really where you get to see the pink components of this. Usually the deeper reddish colors are sort of the first ones to wash away, and then you'll get hints of the pink left behind. But God, look at that. It's a beautiful, gorgeous, vibrant, fresh, wild strawberry sort of a red color. I love it. Now, the pens I used were an old Schaefer school pen, which I actually only got a couple years ago at an art supply store, but they stopped making, I think, around 2005. It cost me like $5. It's a great little workhorse. And this beautiful creature. This is an Edison Menlo with a 1.1 millimeter stub, which I actually had him custom grind out of a broad. And look at that. Look at the semi-translucency. I mean, it's just gorgeous. I mean, I don't mean to make this a commercial for Edison Pens, but even if it was, they deserve it. And they've got this old school filling mechanism. You have to check them out. You have to. But anyways, this was the pen I primarily used. I used this in one or two of the tests, but mostly it was this one because it's such a joy to write with, and it's wonderful to hold, and it's fun to see the ink sloshing around in the back. But start out with 90 gram per square meter Clairefontaine paper. Wonderful, bright, wild strawberry. Again, as you can see, not a lot of water resistance. You'll be able to see that there used to be something there. Legibility will definitely be compromised, and you might need an up-to-date classes prescription to be able to read even the barest bits of it. Dry time was pretty good considering how dense this paper is. In the fine Schaefer pen, it was only 14 seconds. In the broader, and I did ask for him to make this a bit on the wet side, Menlo, it was 24 seconds, but God, look at that richness you get. Up next is Rhodia, 80 grams per square meter. Dry time was largely the same. It was 15 seconds. Again, I used the Menlo, so it was a wetter pen. Water test, again, you can kind of read it, but not terribly easily. And again, that's where you start to see the pink. Most of the heavy red gets washed away, but the pink remains. It almost looks like that breast cancer awareness pink. Up next is Mead notebook paper, which is very standard, especially for school children in the United States. This was stripped of any and all shading. However, it did remain sort of a jolly red color. Dried fairly quickly, 7 seconds, even in this very wet pen. Because the ink was able to seep in and really chemically bond with the fibers of the paper, it remained much better during the water test. However, look at that spread. That's pretty insane. So if you did use it in a finer pen and your handwriting was much smaller, you'd probably just end up with big red blobs. So I don't know if I can recommend it. The bleed through was there. However, it didn't render the next page unusable. It just rendered using the back of this page unusable. By the way, there was no bleed, feather, or spread in the Rhodia. And of course there wasn't on the Clairefontaine either. I'd say that you could write on both sides quite comfortably. Up next is your standard copier paper. This was slightly more readable, but again, there was some spread and the majority of it washed away. The dry time was fairly good. I didn't write it down, but it was right on par with the Rhodia, which I thought was a bit odd because this is more absorbent paper. It's just your basic 20-pound copier paper. You do get some of the shading though. I don't know if you can see it, but there in the brown, and then compared to you get some difference. So it doesn't strip it completely. Now here's where I was faced with disappointment. This one is the Moleskin paper. Here you get feather, you get spread, you get insane bleed through. The water test was also a disaster. The spread during the water test was explosive. You can actually read it from the other side. This would have rendered not only the next page unusable, but the page after that during the water test. So if you had been writing in this and then you spilled something on it, or even just put a damp glass down, you would have been pretty, I'll put it that way. So here's Diamine Strawberry. It's I want to call it a light red because it's really not a pink. It's a bright, jovial red. It really pops. It comes off the page. It isn't pink. I thought it was going to be on the pink side. The swabs that I got were all pink. However, even on this off-white paper, you don't get pink, you get red, and it's a great red. I would especially say this is a great sort of a Christmas card red or stop sign red. It's not the ketchup red that Schaefer script red is. This has a little bit more character to it. It has great potential shading. Highly recommend it. Highly recommend this pen. And so long from the Triple N Network. Hope you have a good day. So long.